Let me welcome Mrs. Lakshmi Puri to the CUTSAdda. Mrs. Puri has been former Deputy Executive Director of UN Women and Assistant Secretary General in the United Nations, coming from a very distinguished Indian Foreign Service. We have known each other since a long time, and I am one of her unabashed admirers. Having said that, Lakshmi, this is in the context of the International Women's Day, which is coming on the 8th of March. I had two questions to ask you in the sense that, kind of a message which could be sent out to the world at large, and particularly our domestic audience. There is an increasing amount of violence against women, and particularly during the COVID-19 period, we had seen a spurt in the same. What do you think is the reason for this, and how is it that we can control it?
Pradeep, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to your Adda. I'm very happy to participate in it. So this shadow pandemic of violence against women is something that needs to be dealt with comprehensively by governments and by society. And what we always advocate is what I call the 4 P's approach. That is prevention, protection, prosecution of perpetrators, and provision of comprehensive one-stop crisis and long-term response services. So that is the key. And in that context, again, I link it up to investment in institutions, investment in terms of actually deploying resources, finances, and personnel for this big project, and gender sensitivity of all those employed in the context of, and who are deployed in the context of ending violence against women project. Also, we have to be very, very careful that the victim and survivor has to be empowered, has to be provided it must be survivor centered, as you mentioned, and it must give her voice and agency. It must uphold her dignity and ensure justice for her.
Thank you. Excellent. Just to remind you that domestic violence against women is also one of the points mentioned in the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. And therefore, the international community recognizes the fact is that this does have a deleterious effect on the economy in one way or the other. Having said that, when you speak about gender empowerment, and I think India has done pretty well in the sense of institutional approaches to it. For example, the reservation of women in the local council elections, either Gram Panchayats or municipal councils. That was a major step forward in terms of empowerment of women. I'm not so sure if there's any study which has shown the linkage between this empowerment and the kind of reduction in violence, if any. Secondly, on the same lines, one pending reform has been to escalate this reservation of women to parliament as well as legislatures. And that has been stuck in some kind of political warp in the center. Is now moving forward. What do you have to say about that?
Firstly, on the link between ending violence against women and women being able to deter violence and cope with violence in terms of their being empowered. Certainly, it helps when they are in leadership positions. And In fact, we have, when I was with UN Women, we had many projects on governance at the village and Jila Parishad levels, Panchayat and Jila Parishad levels, with women leaders, training women leaders. And we found that these empowered women were able to not only resist domestic violence themselves, but mobilize against it, raise awareness, and also change men's attitude and women's attitude. To men, they were able to say that we are equal, we are not, we don't, we will not stand for it. And also to women, to say that you don't deserve it, because this whole context of domestic violence comes from a mindset which says that someone is less equal than the other. It's the worst form of discrimination. So that's one. The other question you've asked is about reservation, the 33% reservation for women in the Indian Parliament. Now, that is something that unfortunately has been pending. But the main reason for that seems to be, as you said, a political war. But I do feel that women's voice, participation, and leadership and decision making in governance at all levels, federal, state assembly, and villages and Jila Parishads, they will make a world of difference in every way for both gender equality and the quality and impact of governance. And we have seen it again on the ground in the village panchayat context, because we now have in many states 50% reservation for women. And also, of course, now women are getting elected without reservation as well.
Yes.
So that's the beauty of it. So in that context, I think it's absolutely imperative that we move to the next level of state assemblies and parliaments actually now taking the cue. That confidence has been built. And also what has been dispelled is this notion that somehow women coming into leadership positions in the parliament and in state assemblies will displace men or disempower men. I think that idea has been demolished at these Jila Parishad and village levels. And I think there is realization that women's leadership matters for everyone, not only for women. It can be done. It's been done in other parts of the world. Pradeep, you have traveled around the world and you work with so many countries. Rwanda has 64% representation of women in parliament. So it can be done. If they can do it, certainly the world's largest democracy must show the way, right? And also, 33% is only the critical mass that we are asking through that women's reservation bill, which has been pending since 2008. Now, the BJP and Prime Minister Modi himself, they have committed to passing this bill, this providing for reservation and supporting women's equal leadership in parliament. So we do hope that during this term itself, and I've certainly great expectations that this will indeed be passed, and he will make that bold move, and that circle, that's that whole cycle can be put into motion of a very virtuous cycle of greater women's representation, equal women, reaching up to equal from 33% to equal, and then it's having a positive impact on all our development indicators and objectives.
Thank you very much, Lakshmi. That was excellent. And what was very positive about your of your expression was that the present government headed by Narendra Modi will certainly bring this forward. The kind of reforms which you've seen recently in the budget is just fantastic, and I'm sure with that kind of spirit, this will happen. Thank you once very much again.